easy. With the holidays just over and lots of fun spent on holiday supplies, activities and gifts, how are your finances? If your answer wasn't favorable, TDC Financial Services is here to help you breathe easy. Up to $40,000 unsecured to consolidate your loans and even get a little something in your hand. No need to worry. Visit our social media pages or call 465-6516 or 469-5430 to learn more on how you can breathe easy with TDC Financial Services Limited. Terms and conditions apply.
Please note that the TDC Financial Services Company Limited, St. Kitts branch, is now located on Central Street in Bastyr, opposite the Norwich Holiness Church.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. You can also follow us via our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, at WINNMedia SKN. And of course, for the latest, what's happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis across the Caribbean region and internationally, visit www.winmediaskn.com. This is Inside the News for March 25th, 2023. I'm Devon Cornelius. It is about 5 minutes past the 11 o'clock hour, and we're going to get this program started. We have on the panel with us today Kamali Mannix out of Antigua and Barbuda, and I've extended an invitation to him as well as Peter Wickham. I'm not sure if he would be able to join. He did say that he may not be able to join, so I'm still hoping out there. But I extended an invitation on the heels of since the announcement by Akila Byron Nisbet that she has tendered her resignation from the People's Labour Party. In a statement on Friday, March 24th, Byron Nisbet announced that she has resigned and she will no longer be part of the PLP's executive.
People make the world go round.
All right, good morning and welcome to the program. Kamali, good morning. Are you hearing me clearly?
I am hearing you clearly.
Awesome. Good morning and thank you so much for accepting the invitation. As I just said in my opening, I've invited you to give your take on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet, who was the deputy political leader of the People's Labour Party. In a statement on Friday, she announced her resignation, and one of the reasons for her resignation, she said that the party that she once believed in had strayed from its core principles, which no longer aligned with hers. Any opening comments from you, Kamali?
I hope I can be heard clearly in the midst of all the background noise, but I would say from my perspective, it's shocking, but not shocking completely. Because what you tend to have after a party loses a general election, particularly in the fashion that the People's Labour Party or the Team Unity Coalition would have, where they were literally dragged out of office by force, you tend to have a realignment, particularly of its key spokespersons or the faces that you would traditionally attach to the party. So in terms of her resignation, it was, I don't think anybody would have said, oh, next week Akila is going to resign. But I think it is kind of not shocking in the midst of, hey, after general election, anything happens, and leading up to general election, anything happens, and then we see how the next 5 years go.
Right. I agree with you, Kamali. Usually after elections, especially when your party has suffered a crushing defeat, resignations usually follow. We saw in Antigua and Barbuda, the main opposition there, I think, the leader was Mr. Remind me again? Harold Lovell. Yes, he turned his.
And he resigned after the general elections because
Right,
he lost by 6 votes.
Wow. So you see, usually after elections, when parties lose, there are resignations. No, the People's Labour Party came on this scene, Kamali, in June of 2013. The party basically was founded by its current leader, Dr. Timothy Harris. Dr. Harris was a member of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party and a part of the administration, which at the time was headed by Dr. Denzel Douglas. There was some turbulence in that administration, particularly with Dr. Harris and Dr. Douglas. We saw that there was this whole public spat. Dr. Douglas came out and spoke to the issue. Dr. Harris also spoke to the issue. Subsequently, Dr. Harris was sacked of his portfolio and he was basically fired or removed from the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Now, shortly after, he formed the People's Labour Party.
Collaboration with Sam Conda and others.
Sam Conda, I think Sam Conda was the other person who ran in St. Christopher 3. Dr. Timothy Harris in St. Christopher 7. Sam Conda was unsuccessful in the election in 2015. But
went on to serve as an ambassador.
Correct. Dr. Harris became Prime Minister in 2015.
For the Team Unity Coalition.
For the Team Unity Coalition with 1 seat.
By leading the People's Labour Party.
No, Kamali, what does this resignation mean for the People's Labour Party? Their deputy leader has resigned. The party has just lost an election, and considering all the other factors, one being the party does not have a traditional base.
I will say this much. the whole situation is it's interesting because so now let's take it from the inception of the People's Labour Party. I would have loved to interact with Mrs. Byron Nisbet to ask the question, what exactly are the core principles of the People's Labour Party? Because I think if that is understood or stated, it's easy to understand what she meant by the core principles. Because based on what I could have observed from the general election campaign, particularly in 2020 and in 2022, Dr. Harris's idea of the core principles of the People's Labour Party is making the lives of, Kittitians and divisions better. I can't say the word because he only has reign over, well, at the time, Kittitians and divisions, right? And in addition to that, I would want to think the other half of it was good governance in general, because that was a major tagline of one, the things that he often found a problem with in the latter years of Denzel Douglas's administration. And then even during his stint as Prime Minister, he always emphasized the importance of good governance, good governance, good governance, good governance, good governance, good governance. And so using that as what I understand to be the core principles of the People's Labour Party, I don't know if I can say that they've veered away from it. Of course, I'm saying this from an outsider perspective. But I think when you look at the history of the party was created as a result of a political disagreement. Mm-hmm. One felt that the other should go. One felt that it was, one had spent too long in government and had moved away from what good government should be. The other thought, hey, I've been here for a while, so I should hold down the fort. Even though I've made some dumb decisions, dumb in inverted commas, I still have a right to continue to govern St. Kitts and Nevis, even though it's been 2 decades. And so the party came out as a result of conflict, so to speak. The party was eventually pushed into government and formed part of a coalition that I think from onset arguments just continued. And I think we've seen that with how the coalition turned out. In spite of, I think, Dr. Harris leading People's Labour Party did a very good job of building the party. And one of the interesting things that I want to look at, had they been able to keep the coalition alive for a second 5-year period, and the coalition had continued for a next 5-year period with Dr. Harris, even if Dr. Harris was not Prime Minister, I believe that the party would have moved to a point of having a traditional base, and would have been able to even replace some of the more traditional parties. And so for me, when I look even at the dissolution of the coalition, even what is happening now with the party, I think this was the desired outcome, the destruction of People's Labour Party. Because I think there was an acknowledgement here, for as long as People's Labour Party has any say in the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, it will grow to become a party that we will not be able to kill. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean there. The reason why I raised the point of the party not having a traditional base, that was one of the things that were being said, the fact that the party was able to propel itself into government in 2015 with only having 1 seat, and then picking up another seat in the 2020 general elections. That seat was picked up by Akila Byron Nisbet. In her statement that she made yesterday, announcing her resignation, that was one of the things that she made mention of the fact that she was able to win St. Christopher 3, West Bastia, becoming the first person to run on a ticket that is not for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party and win the seat in 75 years. And so she spoke about that. Now that she lost the seat to Conris Maynard. The seat is now back with the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Akila has resigned from PLP.
The man for number 3.
So people will question the future of the party, and the reason why they would do that is because the party's deputy leader, even though she's young, she resigned, she lost her seat, and then you have the leader who some may say is on his way out. What says you?
I see it from I see everything that you're saying, and I agree to a significant portion of it. But this is also one of the things that I have also looked at. I remember seeing this because I remember, of course, on election night, me and yourself were sitting in WINNFM's studio,
Mm-hmm.
and of course having this discussion. And I remember saying to someone, when you look at the performance of People's Labour Party in the 2022 general election, I think with all honesty, we can say it was an exceptional performance for what you can consider as a third party, right? The fact that in many constituencies, for example, in number 6, I think number 6 is where Dr. Douglas runs at St. Paul's.
Yeah.
In number 2, that's where Nubian, General Powell, and
Marsha
I think Marsha Henderson ran against one another, right?
Correct.
I don't know if that's what East Bastia. I have no idea. All I know them is by numbers.
Central.
Unfortunately, that's the Central Bastia, right?
Mm.
And in number 8, Keon Connery area, where Dr. Drew won, you found that in those 3 constituencies, and of course in number 7, because Dr. Harris is the man for number 7. In those 4 constituencies, PLP was able to poll more votes than PAM. When you look at number 5, because the leader of PAM was able to retain his seat, he literally had to fight for his life. It was like that scene in what I call it, The Color Purple. All my life I had to fight, right? And so what I saw there is I said, here what? If this is what PLP was able to do with only 3 months of existence as a party on its own, I think had the party, come maybe a week after the general election, said, here what? Let's get our stuff together. We're going to focus on these 4 constituencies and put all of our resources here over the next 4 years. So even if we don't take government, by the next general election, we've solidified our place as a political party in the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we can at least hold 1, 2, 3, whatever the situation is, so that we remain a parliamentary party, not a bag of people standing up outside Parliament and arguing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have been back to St. Kitts maybe twice since that general election. And I don't think I ever saw that energy. When there were political debates in Parliament, Dr. Harris would show up. He would say what he had to say. If ever his government was accused or if ever his stewardship was questioned by the opposition, he would answer. But for the most part, PLP just went silent. And it's shocking to me because I remember before the whole unity breaking up and so on, PLP's youth arm was very active and loud. The party itself was very solid. Mm-hmm. You heard persons like Mrs. Byron Nisbet when she was a minister of government. You heard Dr. Harris. There's this Facebook page, St. Kitts Nevis Times. Almost every day there was some flyer post or something about something Dr. Harris said or did. There was a consistent action and movement. And it seems as if after the election, I don't know if maybe Dr. Harris and company were exhausted or tired, which is probably a factor. Mm-hmm. But it just went flat. And so I think maybe that is part of what has contributed to maybe the resignation of Byron Nisbet, mm-hmm. and maybe the kind of, the easing back of support of certain supporters of the party. But I think if the party had kept that energy, and of course it would have been difficult. Well, I don't think it would have been difficult because really and truly, the government now in St. Kitts only has 6 seats, so it wouldn't have been that difficult because it's not like if they have a super majority, mm-hmm. right? Solidified by the fact that really and truly they didn't win. In my opinion, they didn't win over the hearts and soul of Kittitians because they got the same 13,000 they got in 2020. The only difference is the opposition in this election is in the last election was split, mm-hmm. right? So noting the fact that okay, it isn't necessarily a clean sweep and a full on change of hearts of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think had PLP really put its foot in the ground and said, here, we're going to continue the work, you would have had, well, one, the retaining of persons like Mrs. Byron Nisbet, who, of course, will go down in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis regardless. And I think the party would have had more of a prominence now. But I don't know what happened after the election. Of course, as we said, after every election, there's a realignment, but it seems as if, that whole set of circumstances kind of just dulled the party out.
Kamali, we'll take a short break to give a shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation right here on 98.9. This is Inside the News for March 25th, 2023. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. For those of you who are just joining the conversation, we have on the panel Kamali Mannix out of Antigua and Barbuda, and we are here commenting on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet from the People's Labour Party. In that party, she served as the deputy political leader. Let's take this break, and we will be right back.
Found the sound 98.9 FM.
People make the world.
TDC for service, TDC for quality. TDC your company, TDC for service, TDC for quality. TDC your company. Together we succeed, building a strong community, pressing onward to our destiny. One love, one family. Together we succeed. Let the whole world see. Yes, this is 50.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. It is 25 minutes past the 11 o'clock hour here in the studios of WINNFM 98.9. For those of you who are just joining the conversation, we're on the topic of Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation from the People's Labour Party. The announcement was made on Friday, March 24th. Byron Nisbet served as the party's deputy political leader. On the panel we have with us is youth parliamentarian out of Antigua, Kamali Mannix, commenting on the issue. Kamali, we would want to get some callers in a little later to hear their perspective on this as well. And we will wrap up at 12 noon for the headline news. Now, Kamali, you made an interesting point. One that I have heard people made, and one that I have made myself, and via people, on social media and all of that. But it has to do with the fact that the PLP, being one of the youngest political parties, because I think the MRM in Nevis is actually the youngest, but PLP being one of the youngest political parties in St. Kitts and Nevis, were able to garner a lot of support in the elections of August 2022, to the point where in certain constituencies they were able to get more than the People's Action Movement, which is a traditional party, or as some would say, the main opposition party here in St. Kitts. And so that triggered a lot of questions about the future of PLP. There were people who were of the opinion that because of that fact, the party would go on and survive for a long time. However, since the resignation of the party's deputy leader, that I think has somewhat diminished people's view on the party being able to go on for some more years. Now, there were questions raised about how the PLP was able to perform so well in the election. Was it because it was in government? And, usually parties in government, usually if you're in government, you perform well. What factors do you think led to PLP gathering more support than the People's Action Movement?
I think it was multiple things. This is a statement that I think I've probably made before, and it's a statement that I still hold fast. I think when you look at the general election in 2022, of all of the leaders that stood for election, if you were to measure them on their personal merits and their capacity to lead, I am still of the opinion, and I'm yet to be proven wrong in my personal opinion, who backs there and who did very essentially. I think if you were to compare the leaders, Dr. Harris would stand above Dr. Drew, Sean Richards together in terms of ability to lead, capacity to lead, and ability to look at this person and say they can command a government. I think Dr. Harris takes more of those leadership leadership qualities than Dr. Drew and Sean Richards. As I said, Dr. Drew has only been Prime Minister for a year. Of course, he's never had ministerial experience. He's never had parliamentary experience. Of course, maybe in about 2 or so years, we will see if he has outmatched or is on the same level as Dr. Harris or others. But for me, I think that was a factor. I think persons measured each of these individuals. Who can we trust as a leader of the government? And of course, a very heavy emphasis of PLP's campaign was of all of the parties, of all of the movements across St. Kitts and Nevis, we have the best leader who's been tried, tested, and proven, which is so. And testimony to this is the fact that when I look at the election in 2022, Dr. Harris did very little campaigning in his own constituency. Dr. Harris spent a very significant amount of time campaigning in number 6 and in number 5 and in number 3 and in number 4, and spent very little time in his own constituency. And he was able to win number 7, albeit with a reduced majority from what he usually gets, partially because of the fact that, of course, he didn't get to spend as much time in number 7. Right. That's one. And then 2, in every single constituency, People's Labour Party was able to poll at least about 200 or 300 votes. I think one of the largest was Tasha Williams in number 5. Tasha got 500 votes. And so to me, you saw that they performed, the way they performed was partially attached to the capacity and trust that persons had in the leader. The second thing is, of course, at the time, Dr. Harris was the incumbent Prime Minister. And of course, as Prime Minister, and with a very extended cabinet portfolio, Minister of Finance, National Security, People's Empowerment, Constituency Empowerment, he had responsibility for things such as PAP and the Peace Program, etc. I think a lot of persons also looked at it as this is the incumbent Prime Minister who's done so much for St. Kitts and Nevis in his 7-year period. A lot of at the time, were groundbreaking social care programs were his idea, or he was the advocate for it in terms of the party in general. The third thing that I think there was some level of empathy given to him, because I think there were a lot of persons that realized, here what? This general election isn't as a result of Dr. Harris being unable to govern, Dr. Harris being malicious. It's more the result of a coalition breaking apart and there being no other option. And so for me, I am still of the opinion that if the political leaders were able to solve the issues like grown men instead of acting like 5-year-olds on a play field, the team unity government would have still been in power to today. And as a matter of fact, I have every confidence that had Team Unity remained as a coalition in the general election that would have happened in 2025, they would have been returned to government for a third term, without a doubt. That is an opinion that I still hold to this day. Of course, you will never see because the coalition broke apart. But for me, I think them looking at the quality of the leader of the party, looking at his performance as a prime minister, and of course, the fact that he did have incumbency benefit, particularly in those last months, that it was just him and essentially the sixth person, Vincent Byron, Wendy Phipps, himself, Eugene Hamilton, Akila Byron Nisbet running the government. I think those factors work together to give the People's Labour Party the result that they had.
But Kamala, we also have to look at what led to the Team Unity coalition crumbling. We saw signs of distress and confusion in February of 2022, March of 2022. And so I think what was also on
I think January is where it started, really.
January, right. So what was also on the minds of the voters heading into the elections of August 2022 was, what really took place with the coalition partners and the public spat and the back and forth, and then there were allegations of bribery and them not being able to trust each other, and one man wanted to have all this say. So I think all of these things. Sorry,
I want to say this too. I think the only reason why the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party won, really and truly, if you're going to be very honest and frank, was because of the fact that the opposition vote was split. And usually when you look at politics, you have a legacy party, such as the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Barbados Labour Party, the People's National Movement in Trinidad and Tobago. That when these parties go to a general election, they go to the general election with the expectation to win because the people traditionally place their confidence in them to govern.
Mm-hmm.
The only how these parties lose is when you have a consolidation of opposition parties to push them out. Case in point, Patrick Manning is revered as one of the most, how do you put it? One of the best prime ministers Trinidad and Tobago ever saw. He would have spent a very significant time in that office. And he only lost in 2015 because you had the advent of the People's Partnership, the UNC, the ILP, and all these individual parties in Trinidad today that came together to push them out.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, in Antigua, 28 years of Labour Party rule was ended in Antigua because all of the opposition parties came together as the United Progressive Party. And so what you saw in St. Kitts and Nevis, the coming together of People's Labour, PAM, CCM, is what pushed St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party out of office and kept them out of office 5 years later. From the time those three parties split, I remember having, I think it was even a conversation I had with you, a personal conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, Labour's going to win. And they're not going to win because the people of St. Kitts and Nevis has a coming to Jesus moment. But they're going to win because of the fact that the opposition, so to speak, is now divided. So votes are going to be some over here, some over there, some over here. But Labour is going to hold on to their core support, and that is exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. I share your sentiments, Kamali. Let's say the Team Unity did not fall apart, then I think the results would have been different. The results definitely would have been different. It is 11:33 here in the studios of WINNFM 98.9. You're listening to Inside the News for March 25th. For those of you who are just joining the conversation, we are on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet from the People's Labour Party. Breaking political news yesterday when she made the announcement. Kamali have been trying to reach Dr. Timothy Harris to get a comment from him on Byron Nisbet's resignation. I'll continue to try, but I've been unsuccessful to date. Now, while we are on the topic of Byron Nisbet's resignation, we also have to talk about the leader, Dr. Harris, his future in politics. Where do you see Dr. Harris in 5 years?
what a calamity. I think, well, I can't even say in 5 years, more in maybe 4 or so, because y'all will have elections in maybe 4 years if they finish the 5-year term, about 2027, thereabout. In 4 years, where do I see Dr. Harris? It's one of the two things. It's either one, maybe we will see over the next couple of years, he's going to put on a very valiant fight to at least remain as the member of parliament for number 7. The second alternative, however, is coming up to the next general election, he will just retire. The reality of the situation is Dr. Harris has spent a very significant portion of his life in active party politics. I think maybe either this year or next year will make, 30 years he's been a member of parliament.
About that, yeah.
Specifically representing number 7. What is the retirement age in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, there's no retirement age for the politicians.
No, but in general, what is the age you can start receiving a pension around 60?
62. How about that?
And so if it is by the next general election, he's 60, you might find that Dr. Harris will just retire from active party politics and, what we would say, fade into the sunset or, ride off into the sunset. If it is, however, that he is intending to, continue to serve the people of number 7, and if the people of number 7 are willing to give him that privilege, then he might continue as a member of parliament. But it's left to be seen based on what happens over the next set of years. But for me, I think in spite of whatever happens over the next few years, I think history will always remember him as the fact that in spite of he was Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis for a 7-year period, he did make an impact and a contribution to the development of the country. Mm-hmm. And so history can never forget Timothy Harris, in spite of whatever happens with PLP. Even if the party decides to implode, dissolve, disappear, whatever the situation is, history will always remember him as Timothy Harris, who made a contribution as Prime Minister.
Right. I see what you mean. No, you spoke about him possibly retiring from politics or maybe putting up a fight and, trying again to see if he can make a comeback as the leader for PLP and to possibly return as Prime Minister. Now, earlier when we spoke, you mentioned that Dr. Harris did not, and that is the case. He did not spend much time in his constituency campaigning in the elections held in August of 2022. Mm-hmm. If you look at the results coming out of constituency number 7, it is safe to say that Dr. Harris, the support dropped. He lost some support in his constituencies. I think the factors that you mentioned earlier about PLP, losing the election losing the election perhaps led to him losing some support in his constituency. What says you?
I think the reason for the drop in support, it was multiple things. First things first, I think all of the principles of team unity suffered in terms of their support, because really and truly the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are not ready to go back to the polls for the general election.
No.
Let that not be understated, let that not be forgotten. The people of St. Kitts were not ready to go back to the polls, and the reality of the situation is this is an election that was forced on them because adults couldn't act like adults, not because of an expiration of a 5-year term, right? And so I think all the principles were punished because of it. So you saw that PAM's support was reduced. Well, we can see that because PAM in the last election was the largest party in parliament. Mm-hmm. Right now, PAM is what? PAM is only, it's Sean and who? Is Sean? Is anybody else on PAM?
No, it's just Sean.
Oh, just Sean. Look there. Mm-hmm. So you saw that all the principles of team unity suffered in terms of the support that was given. Sean was the only one who survived, and let's look at the reality. Kenny got about 1,500, Stasha got about 500, Sean got about 2,000. So let's just say, for example, PLP decided not to run a candidate in number 5, then Sean himself could have been gone and there would have been no PAM in parliament, right? That is a reality. If life had gone a different way. And so all the principles of team unity were punished, and so that, of course, would have even affected Dr. Harris and Mrs. Byron Nisbet. You had the compounding factor, as we said before. He spent a lot more time governing, because of course he had a smaller cabinet, and he spent a lot more time campaigning in other constituencies than in his own. And the reality of party politics, nothing at all beats face-to-face campaigning. When you see a candidate comes to your house 1, 2, 3, 4 times, it makes a greater impact and a lasting impact. The team can come to your house every day. If the candidate doesn't come, particularly in Caribbean politics, you couldn't care less. And so I believe that made a very significant impact in why the quote-unquote support for him was diminished. Because the core Labour supporters voted Labour, of course. Those who were able to be grabbed because of the fact that he was elsewhere in St. Kitts and Nevis also voted for Labour. And of course, there was the anger vote because of the fact that they had to go back to the polls because Team Unity dissolved.
But then, Kamali, we also know we're still on the future of PLP here because let's say in the next election, if he runs again and the Labour Party is to win that, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, is to win that seat, again, what would that mean for PLP? Then PLP would no longer have a seat in the parliament, while they were able to garner support in other constituencies. I think the party perhaps would lose its relevance if it loses the only seat that it has, considering the fact that the party is not one of those traditional parties.
So I'm going to spin it. I'm going to spin your question in this way. I think those factors or these factors being put into play is even more reason now why the party should ensure that they start to work to retain the support that it has and build on the support. Because I would like to believe that the individuals that stood for politics for the People's Labour Party and the individuals who have a vested interest in the People's Labour Party don't have a vested interest because it's convenient, but they have a vested interest because they genuinely want to see the People's Labour Party in government. And if that is the case, if it is that the principles of PLP are their genuine conviction, it therefore means that these individuals need to work hard to ensure that PLP remains in Parliament and, if possible, goes into government at some point. And so for me, I wouldn't want to say what the future is going to be. I would more say that these circumstances being considered should be reason why the party should be doubling down on the work that they need to do across St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right. I agree with you there. This is Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. We want to take some calls, Kamali, to hear from the listeners, their take on this as well. The phone lines are open, and we're welcoming your calls at 466-0989 or 662-0989. That's 466-0989 or 662-0989. This is Inside the News for March 25th, 2023. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius, and we have on the panel Mr. Kamali Mannix. We are on the Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation from the People's Labour Party. As I said earlier in a statement on Friday, she announced her resignation from the party. Byron Nisbet said that the core principles that the party, once had, she believed that the party strayed away from those principles, and so she's no longer interested in being a part of that arrangement. We have a caller on the line. Let's head to the phone lines, and we'll take this call. Caller, good morning. You are on the air.
Let me move away. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The radio bothering you still?
Yes, I'm getting some feedback.
All right, let me try going another one. What about this?
No, still feedback. There's still some feedback there.
Oh, gosh. Just be patient. I'm moving around.
You should turn off the radio.
Huh?
You'd have to turn off the radio.
call back.
All right, then, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution. We await your call. The phone lines are open 466-0989 or 662-0989. It is 11:44. We break at 12 for the headline news, and when we come back, I'll continue the conversation. 466-0989 or 662-0989. Kamali, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the discussion while we await the calls?
Yes. To me, I think there needs to be I think PLP itself needs to do some sort of introspection, in terms of asking themselves, what is it that we want, in the next few years, and how is it that we expect to get it? I think part of the issue that the party had in the last general election is a significant bulk of the campaign focused on Dr. Harris, and it focused on him, on his leadership capacity. It also focused on his stewardship of the government. I think what we need to now do, or the party needs to now do, I can't say because I'm not a member of the party, right? I almost made that mistake. Jesus help me. I think what the party now needs to do is really sit down and say, so here, these are the things that we want within the next 5 years. We want to be able to take government, or we want to be able to remain a parliamentary party, whatever the situation might be. And then once it is that they've, come to that conclusion as to what exactly they want, what is their overall mission, then I think it would seriously inform their next set of actions. Because I don't want to believe that they're in politics just to be in politics. I want to believe that they're in politics to be government. Certain things need to happen for them to be in government, particularly solidifying the membership that it has, and then seeking to bring in others. Because if I recall correctly, the original deputy leader of PLP was Sam Conda.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yes.
And of course, Sam Conda would have left in a very similar fashion in terms of resigning from the party and stating, moving away from core principles, or essentially the same line of commentary. And so that being the case, there needs to be a conversation as to, what do we really, 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 truly want? And how do we expect to get it? How that conversation will happen is left to be seen. Will that conversation be peaceful? Who knows? Will the party need to make major adjustments? More than likely. But we will see what happens when it happens. But there needs to be that introspection and we're looking at, hey, what is it that we really want to do? I think the People's Labour Party has the ability, if not to take government, to become the major opposition party, if I'm going to be honest. Particularly based on what we saw in 2022, I think if the party really puts its feet back to the ground and declares open war, it can reach to that point. But it will require younger persons stepping up to assist Dr. Harris, because Dr. Harris is aging. Mm-hmm. I think he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's close to 60.
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
He's close to 60.
Almost 60, you said?
Yeah, I think he's 57 or something like that.
Oh, wow. You see, all the man needed 3 more years to be pensionable, man. But the reality of the situation is politics is for the young. Mm-hmm. Politics is for the energetic. Politics is for he who can be on the road for hours and hours and hours, day after day, year after year, pounding the pavement, as we would say, so that they can get the desired outcome. And so there needs to be a next generation of People's Labour Party supporters. So I think what Dr. Harris needs to do at this point, because he is still the party leader, and I don't think there is plans on his end to leave as the party leader, I think he needs to start looking at, who can be the next Timothy Harris, to not necessarily lead the party, if that is not his desire, but to carry on the message of the party. Who is that next person or set of people? Look for them and, of course, bring them into the party. And I think if he does that, the party stands a very good chance of being able to, if not take government, which seems very highly unlikely because there is the factor of Nevis, be able to become the dominant opposition force in St. Kitts and Nevis.
All right, then. Kamali, you have some callers on the line. Let's head to the phone lines and we'll take these calls. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for being so patient with me. Good morning, Kamali.
Hi, my dear. How are you?
Oh, fine, man. You're always welcome here. We're going to give you a passport. We're going to give you a passport, and I'm coming to Antigua for me and my children.
No problem.
No, man, they can't stop. They can't stop it.
There's
They
always
say when
room
Antiguan men want a wife, they come to St. Kitts.
I believe
I was
you.
told so in Antigua, just in case I think it's yeah. And Antigua said, boy, when Antigua man really ready to settle down, he come to St. Kitts.
All right.
So we don't know. Say the Republic of Antigua and St. Christopher and Nevis. That's on the light side now. No, well, I like numbers, right? Taught maths, and I work as a statistician. I added those two numbers and said PAM and PLP together got more votes than Labour.
They did. They did.
They did,
Yes.
And that's part of the reason why I keep telling people St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, in my opinion, didn't necessarily win over the heart of Kittians and divisions. It was a situation where the opposition vote was split.
I just said they won by default.
They won by default, exactly. There was no other option.
They won by default because people in St. Kitts got so accustomed and were so committed to the unity principle. Because they had Labour there for this long, long time, wouldn't come out, whether they're good or bad. People had gotten fed up on that. And people in St. Kitts, and they still want unity.
They do. That is the let me tell you something. And that's part of the reason why I think the leaders of Team Unity are idiots, if I'm going to be very honest. Because had these individuals stayed together, because I think their fight and argument with Dr. Harris, it was one that was more personal than one that was in the interest of St. Kitts and Nevis.
People felt they belonged to something. If you were to
really think about St. Kitts and Nevis, you would have said, here what? Even if we can't stand the ground that he walks on, the reality of the situation is this party is what the people of St. Kitts and Nevis want. So this party is what
to me, it depends on who you listen to. It's who you listen to.
True.
Your advisors. They're the one. They are responsible more than the voters.
I believe.
I kept saying that they want to say me they're going to have reconciliation.
Because
if you want all again and not all. None. And then what affected PAM was a number of prominent, long-time PAM supporters, party executives who were trying to save themselves.
Yeah.
Because they weren't really so interested in PLP. Some of them deputy leader of the party, That is one reason why Dr. Duke got in. Because the people in Cayon, a stronghold, Cayon coming into Canada. Stronghold. Labour couldn't beat them.
Yes, Pam Town, they used to call
when
it.
When Hamilton decided, he's not thinking, Yes. And then to make matters worse, he went and took the post of deputy PM to a PLP minister. That killed the spirit, because look at the numbers. PLP got 900 and something, right? And then the other one got 8 something. When you add them, they actually got more votes than Labour. And if you listen presently, there has been a great falling away from the party, basically because they try to make correction, as I said, to the two main social safety nets, that the number of poor people, whether PAM, Labour, or whatever, were dependent on.
All right then, caller. We want to take at least one more call before we break.
All right then.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for your contribution. The phone lines are open and we're taking your calls at 466-0989 or 662-0989. 466-0989 or 662-0989. This is Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9 for March 25th, 2023. I am Devon Cornelius. We're on the topic of Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation from the People's Labour Party. What is the future of PLP following Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation? What does it mean for them? What does it mean for Dr. Timothy Harris as the party's leader? These are the questions that are being asked right now. Kamali, I think you wanted to comment on or give a response to the comment by the caller about the.
Yes, I think she's completely correct. When you look at the numbers, PLP and PAM retained more votes than the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. And again, that is part of the reason why I remain firm in my position that St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party didn't necessarily win the hearts of Kittitians and divisions. They won by default because of the fact that the opposition vote was divided. Now, the reality of the situation is, again, there needs to be some sort of solid reflection by the principles of PAM and even the principles of PLP, etc. Because, again, as she would have correctly mentioned, the support that St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party would have gotten, it's now in the balance because there's now an all-out assault on the two tagline major social safety nets that would have been introduced by the Team Unity government, particularly at the behest of Dr. Harris, that the party is now seeking to change. I remember during the election campaign, Dr. Harris said, guess what? If you get rid of me, these people are going to get rid of PAM and PAP and all of these social safety nets that so many of you have come to rely on. If you get rid of me, the peace program will be no more. And the safety and security that you've enjoyed over the past 7 years, it will, dramatically disappear. And I think at the time that he was saying this, of course, there's some that's going to be that would say, oh, he's just, fear mongering and trying to, raise a political argument. But I remember when he was positing it, I said, it's very true. Then coming up to the elections, you heard the outright statements from the party leader, where I think it was Dr. Drew himself that said, hey, yeah, we're going to reform PAP, we're going to reform peace because we don't agree with how it's structured. And so now that there seems to be this all-out assault on these two programs that have managed to keep, St. Kitts and Nevis safe and stable over a 7-year period, it's now a situation where people are really thinking, hey, should we really and truly, did we vote the wrong way? And I think that's a very bad place to be because it means that without even reaching your midterm, the persons who support you are now thinking to remove you. And I think that's where the party finds itself. And so that's why I think, too, it is times like this that form the perfect opportunity for the same PLP and PAM, well, more PLP, because I have my own issues with PAM, really and truly. I think it is time. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not Kittitian and division, so nobody talk and victimize me. I'm just being honest. But I think it is really and truly the opportune time for PLP to say, hey, let's go back to our roots. What were our core promises? We promised the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that we would increase PAP, we would reform the peace program, we would introduce universal health care to ensure that every Kittitian and division has equal access to health care, and we can boost the public health system. We're going to introduce, I remember there was some, from the time your child is born, money is put aside by the central government to pay for their university. I think it's time for PLP to say, what were our core promises to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? What are the things that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis need from a government? Are we willing to provide these things? And the sad thing about it is, which bothers me, I remember one of the first press statements that Dr. Drew made after he became Prime Minister. He said to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, when we look at the financial position of St. Kitts and Nevis, there is enough money to cover all of the social programs that Dr. Harris said he would do if he had continued as Prime Minister. And so now he begs to ask the question, why would you now, as a government, posit the thought of changing and reforming? And I remember at one point in time, somebody said, oh, Dr. Drew said that the country's in red, and I was so confused. This is like, I thought a couple of weeks ago, he said there's enough money to cover the social programs. And so it begs now to ask the question, what is really happening? What is really happening? I will not say, of course, that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has not done some good. For the time they've been in office, I think their stewardship of the government has been acceptable. But where our focus is, of course, PLP for today. And so PLP now needs to do some introspection, because if you're opposition party, you must always see how you can take down your opponent, to see what are the failures in the administration of Dr. Drew and see how you can exploit them. if it is that you realize the people of St. Kitts are saying the social programs that we've come to rely on, that the People's Labour Party promised us would stay in place, that the government is now attacking, you need to say, okay, so you know where we stand. We will support the social programs. We will support you every step of the way. So I don't think that the resignation of Mrs. Byron Nisbet is an all-out, death of the party. I think it provides an opportunity, for the party to do some introspection and see what they can change, what they can adjust to ensure that by the next general election, they remain in Parliament or maybe going to power.
All right, Kamali, and thank you so much for that. We are at the top of the hour. Any closing comments from you, or was that your closing comment?
What I would say is I strongly believe that there is still potential for the party to continue to grow. I think in spite of the resignation of Mrs. Byron Nisbet, I think the party needs to assess whether it needs to go back to its core principles and see how it can position itself to continue to remain relevant in the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis. I do think the People's Labour Party has a place in the governance of St. Kitts and Nevis, and governance all connecting to being an opposition party. So it's for them to own the space that they have and to, solidify themselves in their positions.
All right, then, Kamali, and thank you so much again for accepting the invitation to have this discussion, which I think was very good, very fruitful. For those of you who've just tuned in, we were on the conversation or the topic rather, of Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation from the People's Labour Party, looking at what does this mean for her, for the People's Labour Party, their future, the whole political landscape here in St. Kitts and Nevis, the party being one of the youngest political parties in the Federation. What does this mean for them? Their leader, Dr. Timothy Harris. Kamali, I believe there is going to be some new development on this. Perhaps we're going to see more resignations, or perhaps we're going to see somebody else taking the helm to lead that party. Maybe we're going to see some more surprises in the political arena. We'll stay tuned. Again, thank you so much for joining me on the program for today.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, all right, take care. Thank you so much, Kamali. That was Kamali Mannix, a youth parliamentarian out of Antigua and Barbuda, commenting on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet from the People's Labour Party. In a statement on Friday, she announced her resignation from the party. Byron Nisbet served as the deputy political leader. She came on the scene following the general elections of 2015, when the Team Unity Coalition was elected to office. Byron Nisbet was appointed or sworn in as a senator in the National Assembly. Then in the 2020, or leading up to the 2020 general elections, she was announced as a candidate for the PLP to contest St. Christopher 3. She won that seat, defeating Conrys Maynard of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. She then became the Minister of Health. That was her portfolio, Minister of Health, and of course, she was a member of Parliament for that constituency in the elections of August 2022, which were triggered by a falling out of the Team Unity Coalition. Byron Nisbet lost the seat to the person who she defeated in 2020, Conrys Maynard. What led to Team Unity crumbling and triggering an election? A pile of confusion, a pile of back and forth, and the whole thing just fell. The elections came, and the result, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, headed by Dr. Terence Drew, won the elections, and he was sworn in as our of as Prime Minister, of St. Kitts and Nevis. It is just a few minutes past the 12 o'clock hour. We will now take a break for the headline news, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation right here on 98.9. I'm Devon Cornelius. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and NHC.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Black Sands Music Festival presents Knockshore Night, featuring international dancehall sensation Shansia. Def Jam recording artist Massacre. Live Saturday, April 8th at Sandy Point, St. Kitts. Get your tickets online now with Jad Cash or contact 869-664-4179 for info. Black Sands Music Festival returns with Shansia.
Now girl can't see me and cause problem. Them a man clowns for me walk on them.
Massacre.
Start it and them a run help you walk
Plus live bands and local DJs. Knockshore Night, Easter Saturday, April 8th. A Palm Nations tour event.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
NHC is helping you to pay less in 2023. Having difficulties keeping up to date with your mortgage? Make an appointment to speak with your account manager today and learn how you can pay less. Our refinancing program will give you the opportunity to pay as low as $300 a month. Call us 466-4701 or visit our office at East Park Range. Pay less. Worry less with NHC refinancing program that's designed with you in mind. Offer valid from February 1st to June 30th.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Bastille in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With the WINNFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown. Our top stories: double homicide in Stapleton Village. Tourism Minister announces additional flights during summer. Antigua opposition calling for inquiry into charter that brought hundreds of Nigerians into the island. Internationally, former President Donald Trump warned of death and destruction if he faces criminal charges hours after New York prosecutors probing his hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels said they would not be intimidated. The United Kingdom and European Union have formally signed off on a post-Brexit deal to overhaul Northern Ireland's trade rules. Now the details. Two young men were murdered in the early hours of Saturday, March 25th in Stapleton Village. The police confirmed that the young men, identified as Jermaine Henry, 35, and Denzel Edwards, 34, both of Stapleton Village, died due to a shooting at about 2 a.m. on Saturday. The police are investigating and have shared that a group of men were playing cards in a yard when a lone gunman wearing a hoodie entered the yard and opened fire on them. The two men were shot, and a third man sustained a broken leg in his attempt to escape. Henry died at the scene, and Edwards died shortly after at Josephine France General Hospital after being transported there by the EMS. Anyone with additional information on the incident is asked to call the Stapleton Police Station at 465-2418 or the Violent Crimes Unit at 467-1886, 1887, and 1888. The start of the 25th St. Kitts Music Festival is less than 90 days away, and the first tranche of artists have been launched, with people waiting for the next set of artists to be announced. The staging will be held at Warner Park this year for the marquee summer event for St. Kitts. The Tourism Ministry is also working on filling beds with marketing campaigns regionally and internationally as part of its Summer of Fun campaign, which kicks off with the St. Kitts Music Festival. Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Marsha Henderson, in an address on Kittition Heartbeat, provided an airlift update from Routes 2023 to include additional flights for the music festival and the rest of the summer.
Citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, good day. Over the past 2 days, my team and I have engaged in fruitful discussions with several airlines here at Routes Americas in Chicago. When your government was installed in August 2022, we recognized that building airlift capacity is key to the rebuilding efforts of St. Kitts and Nevis. To date, we have been able to activate a robust plan to improve the tourism sector with the aim of achieving economic stability and rebuilding livelihoods. On the heels of our recent success with the introduction of Inter-Caribbean Airways, we continue to work to bring the waves of progress to our shores. As a result of our continued negotiations and submissions from the Deputy CEO at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Mrs. Melnesia Marshall, we have obtained additional flights for the summer. For the St. Kitts Music Festival lovers, American Airlines has agreed to additional non-stop Miami flights for the 25th edition of the festival. On Wednesday, 21st June, we will have 2 inbound flights and 2 outbound flights on Sunday, 25th June, to accommodate our festival patrons. Additionally, we will have 2 daily flights non-stop from Miami during the period August 15th to September 5th, 2023, This additional flight will no doubt accommodate our students who will be traveling for the summer. The flights will be loaded on the system on Saturday, 25th March, 2023. This is certainly great news for our destination. Despite the challenges experienced by the airline sector, these recent additions are testimony to Americans' confidence in the destination. I take this opportunity to thank the team at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, led by Mr. Ellison Tommy Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, as well as our Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Marshall. I also extend my appreciation to our Chair of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Mrs. Ermeline Sebastian Duggins, our airlift consultant, Ms. Candice Kimmel, and the whole team at the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority. The road ahead is one that is paved with opportunities. We must continue to work together. Our success as a destination is within reach. Let us continue to press forward, each individual doing his or her part to rebuild a stronger nation. Thank you.
The minister made that address at Roots World 2023, a development conference that the Federation's tourism officials have participated in previously, which brings together airlines, airports, and aviation stakeholders worldwide to build air services and global economic growth. The summer lineup for the Federation includes the St. Kitts Music Festival from June 22nd through 24th, Nevis Mango Festival June 30th through July 2nd, St. Kitts and Nevis Restaurant Week July 13th through 23rd, Nevis Culturama July 27th through August 8th, and Caribbean Premier League CPL August 31st through September 30th. In regional news, Antigua opposition calling for inquiry into charter that brought hundreds of Nigerians into the island. That story and more from Carib Update.
The Antigua Opposition United Progressive Party is calling for a public inquiry into what it calls the Antigua Airways human trafficking scandal. The party has issued a petition that it is asking people there to sign to take to the island's Governor General to demand the probe. The UPP also held a public meeting on Thursday night in St. John's to bring more awareness to the campaign. Opposition leader Jamal Pringle said the UPP plans to keep up the pressure until an inquiry is ordered.
So as we continue, this is only the beginning. If we have to campaign every week, we are going to do so because we expect answers, because we deserve no less.
The Antigua opposition is still contending that the Gaston Brown administration has not told the true story about a series of charter flights from Nigeria to the country late last year. The UPP said there are still unanswered questions under what conditions 900 West Africans arrived in Antigua with no onward destination indicated and some with no valid return tickets. Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown said no immigration rules were broken. An opposition candidate in last January elections, Pearl Quinn, said the government's story is just not adding up. Antigua government spokesman Lionel Hurst says it will be better if all the former shareholders of Liat address the issue of severance of the former workers together. His comments in St. John's Thursday were made against the backdrop of the recent announcement by the government of Barbados that it is moving to pay severance to nationals there who had served with the airline. Hurst suggested that the individual government should not go it alone on the issue.
The government of Antigua and Barbuda, under the Honorable Gaston Brown, has indicated that it will now seek a regional solution rather than allowing the unions to try to extract from the government of Antigua and Barbuda 100% of the amounts owed to the workers of Liat. And so from henceforth it will collaborate with all four shareholder governments and their unions, or the unions of the employees, rather than the Antigua Workers Union only.
Hearst indicated that there has not been universal agreement on the way forward in dealing with the issues regarding the former LEAD workers.
So we're seeing some resistance to this proposal put forward by Prime Minister, and we have appended to today's Cabinet report. We have appended a short article written by Prime Minister Gaston Brown explaining in greater detail his objection to and his demand for greater collaboration among the people of the Caribbean on finding a solution to the LEAD challenge.
Prime Minister Gaston Brown has cut off all talks with a local union representing former LEAD workers, suggesting that their demands have been unreasonable. A first-time candidate running with the incumbent Virgin Islands Party in the British Virgin Islands has suggested that people there should have a different attitude to people coming there from the Dominican Republic. Alan Whitley, an economist, is advocating that a fresh look be taken at the territory's immigration systems. He lamented some of the attitudes to immigrants from the Dominican Republic, noting that many BV Islanders went to work in that country between the 1920s and 1950s.
So you're not getting no support from me when you start talking nonsense about the Dominicans and this, that, and the other, because when they had thing here, a lot of us went there. I could tell you the names. Nearly every person on this stage here, family, at some point, was in the Dominican Republic in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and everybody knew it. So why, if those people were so kind to us and allow us to feed our families here, why are we so cruel to them now? Why are we so cruel?
Ruling party candidate in the BVI, Alan Whitley. A post-mortem is being conducted in Grenada Friday following the death of a man at the Grenada prisons. Prisoner Kenton Phillip, who has been behind bars for the best part of 20 years, died on Thursday, with family members saying they suspect he was beaten to his death by prison officers. Phillip, who was under psychiatric supervision, was, according to some prison sources, manhandled by some officers after he was, as described by one person, acting up.
We now bring you these international reports.
Ratcheting up his already incendiary rhetoric, former President Donald Trump, in a 1 a.m. social media post on Friday, warned of potential death and destruction if he were to face criminal charges in a New York City investigation. The post on Trump's Truth social media site was the latest in a string of verbal attacks against Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg since last Saturday, when Trump wrongly predicted he would be arrested 3 days later. Bragg's office, which is probing hush money payments by Trump's former attorney to adult film star Stormy Daniels made in the midst of the 2016 election, said they would not be intimidated. Trump's vague but violent threat, for some, recalled his language ahead of the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, when Trump's supporters, inspired by his false claims of voter fraud, launched an attack in a failed bid to stop Congress from certifying President Joe Biden's victory. Meanwhile, ABC News reported on Friday, citing sources, that a judge rejected Trump's bid to prevent former aides, including his ex-chief of staff Mark Meadows, from testifying before a grand jury probing the January 6th attack. The federal grand jury is investigating failed efforts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 election, one of two criminal investigations into the former president being handled by special counsel Jack Smith. On Saturday, Trump will hold a campaign rally in Waco, Texas, 30 years after a raid on the Branch Davidians religious sect by federal agents resulted in 86 deaths, including 4 law enforcement officers. Waco has become a symbol of government overreach for some right-wing extremist groups. In an email, a Trump campaign spokesperson said Waco was chosen because it is situated between several major population centers and has the infrastructure needed to host a large event.
enacting a deal that the UK and the EU both hope will mend a relationship frayed by Brexit's main unresolved question, the status of Northern Ireland. Britain's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly welcomed the EU's chief negotiator Maros Šefčovič to London to sign the Windsor Framework.
We've now found a way to move forward. We've found a way to unlock the full potential of what is a very strong and important partnership between the UK and the EU.
It's at British ports like Liverpool where it will be implemented most directly. Designed to address the anger of Northern Ireland's Unionists and Westminster Conservatives, who said rules governing shipping from the mainland undermined Northern Ireland's status as part of the United Kingdom. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit deal left an effective customs border between mainland Britain and Northern Ireland, mandating strict checks on goods sent there. Under the new agreement, that will still be the case for goods destined to end up in the Irish Republic. They will be subject to a so-called red channel of cross-sea trade. But for a shipment of goods that's guaranteed to remain in Northern Ireland, it will go through a green channel, requiring just one piece of documentation. The idea is even a mixed shipment of goods from various suppliers to various customers could be treated in this way, drastically reducing the barriers that have kept familiar products off Northern Irish shelves. But that doesn't mean that this focus of post-Brexit tension has been resolved to everyone's satisfaction. Some species of trees and plants for now still won't be allowed into Northern Ireland because of EU plant safety laws.
The ayes to the right, 515. The noes to the left, 29.
But the bigger issue is political. Despite the overwhelming majority in the UK Parliament this week, Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party and some Conservatives voted against. The DUP isn't satisfied that a measure allowing the Assembly in Belfast to challenge changes to EU law that will apply in Northern Ireland goes far enough, and it's still refusing to go back into the power-sharing administration. Nonetheless, a deal announced with great fanfare less than a month ago is now ratified and moving ahead, removing the main obstacle to EU-UK progress in other areas like scientific cooperation. Harry Fawcett, Al Jazeera, Liverpool.
The Vatican has returned 3 fragments of the ancient Parthenon sculptures to Greece in a move that's been described as a gesture of friendship. One is a chunk of a horse's head, the other a bearded man, and the third the head of a boy. Our reporter Shelley Phelps has more details.
Returning home, 3 more Parthenon fragments are now being displayed at the Acropolis Museum in Athens alongside other ancient artefacts. There were smiles all round at the ceremony attended by representatives of Pope Francis and the Greek Orthodox Church.
The gifting of the fragments of the Parthenon, which have been held in the Vatican museums for more than 2 centuries, shows itself as an ecclesial, cultural, and social gesture of friendship and solidarity with the people of Greece.
The decision to return the fragments was announced by Pope Francis last year.
My personal heartfelt wish is that this initiative is mimicked by others. Pope Francis showed that this is possible and significant.
Greece hopes the move will spur other overseas institutions holding Parthenon sculptures to return them.
The ceremony today, which completes the exceptionally generous gesture by Pope Francis, similar to the gesture by the government of Sicily and the Republic of Italy a few months ago, shows the road that we could follow, that everyone could follow, in order for the unity of the Parthenon to be restored. In the place where this should happen,
Greece is continuing calls for Britain to return marbles taken from the Parthenon temple by Lord Elgin in the early 19th century. There's been speculation that the British Museum where they're held could arrange a loan of the sculptures. But Greek ministers say the country could never accept a loan of something they consider stolen. Shelley Phelps, BBC News.
The
Hollywood actress Gwyneth Paltrow has been giving evidence in a trial where she's accused of causing a ski crash which left a man with brain damage and broken ribs. Terry Sanderson is suing the star over the incident in Utah in 2016. He wants $300,000 in damages. Gwyneth Paltrow has told the jury that Mr. Sanderson crashed into her and she'd feared that she was the victim of a deliberate assault. Sophie Long has sent this report.
Gwyneth Paltrow has been present throughout this trial, listening to emotional accounts from two of Terry Sanderson's daughters about the impact the accident had on their father. Today it was the Oscar-winning actress's turn to give her account of the collision that Mr. Sanderson says left him with a permanent brain injury and 4 broken ribs.
I was skiing and 2 skis came between my skis, forcing my legs apart, and then there was a body pressing against me. And there was a very strange grunting noise. So my brain was trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought, is this a practical joke? Is someone like doing something perverted? This is really, really strange. My mind was going very, very quickly and I was trying to ascertain what was happening.
Okay. The jury must decide who hit whom on the slopes of Park City, an upmarket ski resort which is home to the Sundance Film Festival and attracts throngs of celebrities. Ms. Paltrow is accused not just of causing the crash, but also of skiing off without checking if Mr. Sanderson was hurt.
At the time of the collision, were you aware of the rule that if you're in a collision, you need to share your name, your contact information with the person that you're involved in a collision with?
I don't think I was aware of the rule.
Okay. Were you aware that there is kind of a rule of common decency to do that?
I would not have left the scene without leaving my information, and my information was left.
Did you provide that information?
No, Eric Christensen, who was the ski instructor with us, said he would leave all the information.
He wants her to be held accountable. She wants to clear her name. Any victory will be a moral one. Sophie Long, BBC News, Los Angeles.
You were listening to the Midday News on WINNFM 98.9. The headlines: double homicide in Stapleton Village. Tourism Minister announces additional flights during summer. Antigua opposition calling for inquiry into charter that brought hundreds of Nigerians into the island. Internationally, former President Donald Trump warned of death and destruction if he faces criminal charges hours after New York prosecutors probing his hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels said they would not be intimidated. The United Kingdom and European Union have formally signed off on a post-Brexit deal to overhaul Northern Ireland's trade rules. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and NHC.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
NHC is helping you to pay less in 2023. Having difficulties keeping up to date with your mortgage? Make an appointment to speak with your account manager today and learn how you can pay less. Our refinancing program will give you the opportunity to pay as low as $300 a month. Call us 466-4701 or visit our office at East Park Range. Pay less. Worry less with NHC refinancing program that's designed with you in mind. Offer valid from February 1st to June 30th.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Black Sands Music Festival presents Knockshore Night, featuring international dancehall sensation Shansia. Def Jam recording artist Massacre. Live Saturday, April 8th at Sandy Point, St. Kitts. Get your tickets online now with Jad Cash or contact 869-664-4179 for info. Black Sands Music Festival returns with Shansia.
Now girl can't see me and cause problem. Them a man clown for me walk on them.
Massacre.
Start it and them a run help you walk
Plus
on.
live bands and local DJs. Knockshore Night, Easter Saturday, April 8th. A Palm Nations tour event.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News right here on WinFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. It is 40 minutes past the 12 o'clock hour here in the studios of WinFM
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
If you need protection, you need one who you can trust. To secure your investment, you need one who'll do you just. TDC Insurance, you're the one that you can trust. TDC Insurance, you're always safe with us.
TDC Insurance is your go-to insurance company for all your insurance needs. We take pride in offering you the best solutions and ensuring our customers are fully satisfied. TDC Insurance, we take good care of you, guaranteeing you peace of mind. You're always safe with us.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9 for March 25th, 2023. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. The phone lines are open and we will be welcoming the calls at 466-0989 or at 662-0989. Let's head back to the phone lines and we will be taking some calls. Caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Devon. I listened with interest to the morning session, and one of the things your guest said, or he tried to identify, was the core principles that Killer Byron Nisbet mentioned. Okay, and I think he said one was to make people's lives better, and the other one was good governance. Well, at least he had the caveat to say that he's not on the ground in St. Kitts, and I think his analysis showed that he was not on the ground in St. Kitts. You see, from its inception, one always questioned the philosophy and values of the PLP, because there was very little expression of Labour Party values and principles. Okay? Called itself a Labour Party, but never really got into ideology and those kinds of things. And I think that was because the party was really founded on a very dubious distinction of a personality cult, I think, behind the leader, Dr. Harris, right? It was his disaffection with the SKNLP, and that was also a case where there was a lot of subterfuge and undermining and self-aggrandizement involved as well. And it was his ambition, I think, to be prime minister that fueled a lot of that. And that continued throughout the lifetime of the PLP. It was characterized by nepotism and corruption and betrayal. Harris had undermined the SKNLP before. He then undermined his own executive in the PLP, so much so that it was split and some left him. And then he undermined his unity colleagues, right? So he was really only loyal to himself. And so it was just a matter of time before even his closest allies and confidants, and I guess Mrs. Byron Nisbet was one of them, it was just a matter of time before they saw through him, right? And so the demise of the party, I think, was inevitable, exactly because it was not built on a sound foundation of principles and values, right? He mentioned good governance. Dr. Harris was always dismissive of good governance. I remember 6 months into the administration after 2015 that on a radio show, I asked him about that good governance agenda. And his response was, nobody gonna crack no whip on him. And that, from that point, I realized there would have been trouble. Okay? Because had he followed through that good governance agenda that he promised, he would never have been in the situation that he is now.
What do you think the future of Dr. Harris and the People's Labour Party is?
Well, I think we're going to see that pretty soon. For one thing, I think, isn't this convention season?
Yeah.
Isn't it around this time that normally have their conventions and so on?
I think it's around this time, April down to June, around that time there.
Right. Okay. And maybe Akila Byron came out in advance of that. Okay. And so we'll see soon enough if, for instance, there is, if other people who are candidates follow her and desert the party, or they decide to stay with Harris. I think you're going to see a split there as well. Okay? So there's a split within a split. Right? And we know that never ends well. Okay? And so I think that, and by the way, I think that the assertion that Labour won by default is, I don't think that's correct, right? Because I think it was a really solid rejection of the leadership, okay? It was a total rejection of that style, Harris's style of leadership, which was divisive and corrupt and self-serving. And I think the electorate recognized that, and that is why Labour was able to overcome whatever coalitions they had in the last election. I mean, you can't be accusing each other of being a dysfunctional government and expect the people not to go for the alternative. You know, that don't make any sense.
I see your point, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so what happens to the PLP? I think, I honestly don't think Dr. Harris can recover from this. You know, I'd be very surprised if he did. I just don't see it. Okay? I think more desertions would probably follow. And it was interesting in the comment. I think at one point, Byron Nisbet basically said that he couldn't continue under that the present leadership
of Dr. Harris, yeah.
Which almost sounds as if she had been, if Harris had stepped aside and appointed her as leader of the, well, not appointed, but let her be, support her for the leadership. That might have saved the PLP, right? Because I don't think Harris can make a comeback, to be quite honest, right? And as to what happens, my other question would be, what happens to Akila Byron now? Is she going to remain in politics? Because I suspect that she did have a following. I mean, she was a very likable person, okay, just not, I think she was more in the shadow of Harris than anything else, okay? So you could not allow for her free expression. So that is yet to be proven. But is she going to remain in politics? Like she said, she's going to be there for the constituency, whatever that means. Or is she going to go back to her roots, which was the SKNLP? We don't know. But I think that would also have an impact on the PLP because, like I said, she must have some kind of following, and some people would just follow wherever she goes, right? Which obviously would weaken the PLP even further. So I think there's torrid time in for the PLP. I don't see it surviving. I would say good riddance because it was a very divisive, very, they had a style there which was very combative and not good for the nation as a whole. It is true that there were some gains made in terms of the making people's lives better. But in a number of these social programs in particular, there were difficulties in them. They were serious. The cause, as for instance, the murders this early morning showed, right? Things were not as they appeared to be. It did not solve a lot of the underlying issues. It did not solve the poverty issues because these were programs that I think were either poorly thought out or they were basically used as props for the parties, okay, in a very cynical way, for the Unity Party in a very cynical way to gain votes, not so much as to solve the underlying issues. And so these are still these issues still need to be addressed. Okay? And so as for, yes, people, I think, like the idea of unity because they were tired of the divisive politics. I still see, you probably notice it too, that the political atmosphere has not yet settled down. We're still not unified, I think, towards nation building. There's still a lot of machinations going on, both in the NIA at the Nevis end, as well as the St. Kitts end. Okay? So there's still work to be done. But I don't think a splintering of parties and the creation of more parties is going to help the situation, right? Eventually, I think leadership is going to be what is done, wise policies that make sure that everybody can, or most people, can buy into them, right? And so we look, Dr. Joe is still very, very, very new, and I think his leadership style is yet to emerge. But hopefully we get to the point where we can have some semblance of unity of purpose to move the country forward. But I don't think splintering parties, creation of parties splintering like the PLP further splintering into more parties, or can actually do that job. Okay, so it's going to be interesting political times ahead. But like I said, it's convention season. We wait to see if there will be a PLP convention, because that would signal the state of the party. And at the same time, we wait to see if there would be a PAM convention as well, because there are changes that need to be made there too. And that will also signal where that party goes as well. So interesting times ahead.
All right then, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution to this program. This is Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We'll take a short break to give a shout out to our sponsors. But when we come back, we'll definitely continue the conversation for today. I see that the phone lines are ringing off the hook. I'll get to the calls as quickly as I can. 466-0989, 662-0989. But I have to take this quick ad break, and I will be right back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
People make the world.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Breathe easy. With the holidays just over, and lots of fun spent on holiday supplies, activities and gifts, how are your finances? If your answer wasn't favorable, TDC Financial Services is here to help you breathe easy. Up to $40,000 unsecured to consolidate your loans and even get a little something in your hand. No need to worry. Visit our social media pages or call 465-6516 or 469-5430 to learn more on how you can breathe easy with TDC Financial Services Limited. Terms and conditions apply.
Please note that the TDC Financial Services Company Limited, St. Kitts branch, is now located on Central Street in Bastyr, opposite the Norwich Holiness Church.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
Welcome back to Inside the News right here on Win FM 98.9. Let's head back to the phone lines and we'll take some more calls. Caller, you are on the air. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon again, Devon. Good afternoon, Mr. McMahon. It was nice hearing you. I was expecting you. We need a little history lesson, you know. The thing about undermining, that is the trademark of his party. Starting from our first national hero. Ask him what happened to Mr. Matthew Sebastian and what happened to Limo and Mr. Southwell. All push out, you know. Austin Edinburgh on Freedom Radio outlined how he got Dr. Douglas in as the leader of the first constituency representative and then the leader of the party by the humiliation and the pushing out of Charles E. Mills. And again, what goes around comes around, the humiliation and the pushing out of Dr. Denzel Douglas. And in case he does not know, the Labour Party was based on the Fabian socialist philosophy. And the motto was for the good that we can do. The Labour Party, presently under Dr. Douglas, and now under Dr. Drew, they are in the same position as the PAM party that they accuse of being on the right. They are no longer a Labour Party, everything in the mouth, and all the benefits and all the everything goes to foreigners. The investment incentives that are given to foreign investors are never given to our local people. We are seen as laborers, I must say. So, when they go out and they bring in investors, it is to provide low-paying jobs to our people. They are right, center, middle as the other parties. So the thing about ideologies, he'll have to demonstrate it because the history don't show it. One reason why Mr. Bratcher sought to think the land, because that is a socialist thing. And this concept that the Labour Party alone must rule St. Kitts. Along the same line, there's never been any reception of any opposition party. Any. And he's a teacher. He taught maths and science, I think. Look at the numbers. When you add the PAM numbers to the PLP numbers, they got more votes than the Labour Party. That ain't no makeup. That's data. That is statistics. You could work it out any way you want. They won by default. The vote was split among the two contending parties in St. Kitts. If they were together, they'd have never been in there. So it's nothing about ideology and philosophy. He himself knows our people, the working class, have lost a lot on the Labour Party, especially after they went to the SIDF. They were given the meager part. The lands, our people couldn't get land, they get a little piece of land here. And investors come in and were given half an estate, Kitchen Hill, taken from the people of St. Paul's and Newton Ground, who worked, because I went on farms there, you know, so I don't have to make up anything. They took the land away from the people in St. Paul's and gave it to a foreign investor. And then they have enough security that the people can't even go up there. Anyway, he turned the Southeast Peninsula into a town by itself, by his own thing. That is the Labour Party doing. So when he comes with this other thing about, you all have no ideology. Far from where it started, you could never call it no kind of socialist, neither democratic, no kind. And he need to be honest. I am not here talking for PLP nor PAM, but the facts are there. Whatever fighting they're accustomed to fight, and undermining inside the party, that is name brand of Labour. He undermined Limo, then Timothy tried to undermine him. The other one again, pure undermining going in there. Confess that all of us have sinned. Say, look, all the parties have sinned. All. And they won all 8. All 8. They had 7-1 in 1995, right? All 8 in 2000. After that, it was all downhill. They ended up with 3, then 2. How many persons vote off the Labour Party? Any other party that came from all 8 down to 2. And they bounced back. The same can go for PAM and PLP. How much time they bury PAM? And PAM bury Labour. And they bury each other. They will bounce back because this is a vacuum of leadership in this country. So once you could get the people worked up, they're on your side, but the facts are here that the Labour Party won by default. They split the opposition votes in 2, and when they add up, they are more than them. Pull out your statistics and see. I have nothing against Dr. Drew. Nothing against him. But I've always said he alone is supposed to be in that kind of position, and the former leader of that party should have been out. He could have put him Miss Clark. Why they waiting for next shutdown? Be honest. So if Dr. Harris got all of his training in whatever subterfuge, whatever you want to call it, in that party, 18 years in the end, he was the top man. He was picked by the people in that party to go up against Dr. Douglas. And they try to embarrass and shame Mr. Conda. Mr. Conda don't surprise me when I hear him on the show on Friday, you know. He is one. He knows about the undermining and the subterfuge. Mr. McMahon, you mean well, but you need to get a course in history, political history in St. Kitts. We want solid people, want unity, maybe not that one. It wouldn't be surprised me if PLP go back in. They'll be glad to have them because you hear what you're inviting Miss Nisbet. She's PLP. Once she's going back to the party she born into. You all get over this thing about people born. People born into party from when you're born into the country. So your analysis is very weak because you lack historical background. No doubt about it. Ask the old Labour people them. You want to build houses and you build some small jam-up thing and charge them a lot of money. Eh? You talking about ideology and philosophy? But it got to be seen in practice. I was one objector to say, if you're going to take a person out of a small house with 6 children and put them in a next small house, sometimes smaller, with the same 6 children and give them 2 bedrooms, one for the mother and the father, and then all the mixed sex boys and girls or teenagers in and one. I went into a house one time and I felt ashamed.
All right then, caller. We want to take some more calls, all right?
So, Mr. McMahon, please check your history and change your idea about you all do have no philosophy in practice. All right then.
All right, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution to this program. This is Inside the News for March 25th, 2023. I've just received a statement from the People's Labour Party dated Saturday, 25th March 2023. The People's Labour Party statement on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet, and I'll read that for you now. It says, "We acknowledge that our Deputy National Party leader, Akila Byron Nisbet, has resigned. Therefore, on behalf of our National Party leader, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, our National Executive, our General Membership, and the good people of West Bastia, we thank her for her service to our party and country. The People's Labour Party, PLP, remains anchored to its mission of improving the quality of life, for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. In this regard, we continue to enjoy the support of the good people of St. Christopher, 3 West Bastia, to build the constituency and its communities even stronger and better. The PLP remains the fastest growing political party in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will continue to focus on the priorities that support this path of growth and development. We hold the distinction of twice leading Team Unity to victory, and are reminded that we garnered the second largest number of votes in the federal elections on the 5th of August 2022. The core principles of our party remain intact, and we have never and shall never waver from them. We will therefore continue our work towards ensuring that we focus on initiatives which can consolidate the socio-economic gains of our last 7 years that will be expanded under a future PLP administration. We continue to be grateful for the strong expressions of support from the party's stalwarts and supporters, not only in Constituency 3, but across the country at large and the diaspora. That was a statement from the People's Labour Party on the resignation of Akila Byron Nisbet. They have acknowledged her resignation, and the party said in its statement, and I quote, "The core principles of our party remain intact, and we have never and shall never waver from them," end quote. So we have the party here saying that the core principles remain intact, but the outgoing deputy national leader or deputy political leader is saying that she left, or one of the reasons why she left was because she felt as though the party strayed from its core principles that no longer aligned with hers. It is 12 past the 1 o'clock hour here in the studios of WIN FM 98.9. The phone lines are open and we are taking your calls at 466-0989 or 662-0989. The phone lines are open and we want to hear from you, your thoughts. Let's head back to the phone lines and we'll take this call. Caller, you are on the air. Good morning. Good afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon again. I think Mrs. Henry need to check her history, actually. Right? I won't for 1 minute say that all parties, all governments have not contributed to the development of our country. Okay? Since independence, for instance, we've had solid, steady growth throughout, except for 1 or 2 periods, and we always bounce back. So all parties have done their part. But if she's honest, she'll have to admit that the most monumental achievements in our country were effected under a Labour Party government. When you think about universal adult suffrage, free secondary education, the nationalization of land, the transition from sugar to services, and in more recent time, the CBI revamping. Those were things that affected the lifestyle, the way we live, the way of life of ordinary Kittians in a positive way. And all of those can be attributed to the Labour Party. Okay? With regards her assertion that the two parties, PLP and the PAM factions combined got more votes in St. Kitts than the Labour Party, I think she needs to check her facts again. Come back with the actual figures, because I suspect that the Labour Party certainly got a majority of the votes cast in St. Kitts. Okay, I don't know if she was looking at St. Kitts and Nevis, but we're talking about the parties in St. Kitts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to have to check the results. Not to cut you off, caller. I'm going to have to check the results myself to confirm if that is actually the case.
That's easily checked, but it just shows how erroneous one can get when they don't have the facts, when they don't look at what the actual figures. Okay, but the point I'm making. I mean, one of the things she said was that talk about specific things like the housing that was provided by Labour. I well remember the devastation of the hurricane, when there was an urgent need for shelter. Obviously, the more people you can help, the better it would be. Okay, and this is a developmental issue, in that you go from one stage to a next. You're not going to end up with a large house straight at the outset, because what that does, yes, it benefits some, but you have to look at the majority. You have to look at the need, the pressing need at a particular time. And certainly after a hurricane, the pressing need is to provide shelter for as many people as possible. Okay? So you can look at any particular project and nitpick at it, but overall, my point is that the Labour Party has, of all the parties, that has been the party that has spurred the most in terms of economic, political, and social development. I don't think that can be refuted. All right? So I think Mrs. Henry need to stop revising history. So it comes with some revisionist history sometimes. But the history to me is very clear that it's the Labour Party. But that does not deal with the particular situation right now. Okay? The fact is, we have to move from beyond that and look at what is best for the future. Right? One of the things that in the past federal elections, the recent federal elections have shown, is that our country is very divided. People win seats by very small margins or very large margins, and that can skew the results. It can make people feel as if, an election is either closer than we thought or the other extreme, right? What we need, I think, is definitely more unity of purpose, okay? Not any splintering. The splintering just defeats the whole purpose of unity, right? And so that is why I'm against any further machinations and splintering, because that is just going to end up dividing our people more, causing problems after general elections, when you have to put all kinds of coalitions together. Sometimes there's an attempt to do that before elections as well. But generally speaking, coalition governments aren't very successful in advancing the country's agenda. They're inherently unstable, because you have people with different ideologies and egos and so on coming into play, which does not bode well for the country. So I like the one party. You must have an alternative, and so one party and the opposition. It's not always possible in a democracy, but I think that is what's best. Give that party 5 years to govern, okay? Don't have no subterfuge and machinations in between. Give them the 5 years. After that 5 years, then the people decide again, what direction to go in. Like I like when things were as simple as that. Not know when it gets so complicated. Okay then.
All right then, Carla. Thank you so much for your contribution to this program. So I went searching for the results. Hold on, let me just pull up the results here. Give me 1 second. So I went searching for the results from the elections. And I have here 13,438 votes for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. That is 45.75%. The party gained 6 seats and their seat margin increased by 4. The People's Labour Party received 5,036. That is 17.14%. The party has 1 seat and their seat margin went down by 1. The People's Action Movement received 4,737 votes. That is 16.13%. The party received or secured 1 seat and went down by 3. The Concerned Citizens Movement received 3,476. That is 11.82%. They have 3 seats. And the Nevis Reformation Party received 2,616. That's 8.91%. No seat. So when you add the 5,036 to the 4,737, that gives me 9,773. So the votes that PLP and PAM received combined are less than the total amount of votes that the SKNLP received. Approximately, I'm doing the maths here, give me a second. That is approximately 3,665 votes less. So, however, if you are to add the amount of votes that the okay, let me add the amount of votes that the Concerned Citizens Movement received. It's not a party on St. Kitts, but they are or were a part of the Team Unity Coalition. So when you add the 50-36 plus the 47-37 and the Concerned Citizens Movement's 34-73, you get 13,246. So even if you add the Concerned Citizens Movement to the equation, the Labour Party by itself still received more votes with all of the Team Unity former or ex-partners combined. So that has put that conversation to bed. It is 23 minutes past. This is Inside the News right here on 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Let's head back to the phone lines. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. While it might be true, arithmetically, that the Labour Party won a minority of the votes countrywide, we need to take it in context. The parties in Nevis did not contest the seats in St. Kitts,
yes,
and vice versa. And so we should look in Nevis and say which party won the most seats, which party won the majority of the popular vote, and do the same thing in St. Kitts. Which party won the most seats, which party won the popular vote. On St. Kitts, the Labour Party won the popular vote.
Correct.
And so saying that they got a minority of the votes, it is true arithmetically, but in the context of how the voting options were, the people on Nevis had no opportunity to vote for the Labour Party. The people on St. Kitts had no opportunity to vote for the NRP. And so therefore, in reality, the Labour Party won the majority of votes on St. Kitts. The CCM won the majority of votes on Nevis. The fact that we don't have a proportional system is a fact, and so it doesn't matter what happens. In the 80s, I think, the People's Action Movement formed the government. They had a minority of the popular vote, yet they still formed the government. Our system doesn't ask who has the most votes. Our system asks who has the most seats.
Yes.
And in terms of popularity, etc., the Labour Party increased its number of seats, a 200% increase from 2 to 6. The People's Action Movement had a 75% decrease in the number of seats from 4 to 1. And the PLP had a 50% reduction in seats from 2 to 1. Those are the realities of the last election. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller, for your contribution to this program. This is Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. You are correct in your explanation there. When you do look at the results, if you're going to look at the popular vote, you have the St. Stephen's Labour Party not only receiving the majority of votes, but they received the popular vote, so they got the most votes, they got the most seats. If you go over to the island of Nevis, it is the same thing for the CCM. I did not want to add the CCM to the equation when we were talking about the party on St. Kitts, because people on St. Kitts, as you mentioned or highlighted, did not get the opportunity to vote for any party at all on Nevis. And so if you only add the results for the two parties on St. Kitts, then, you get that 9,000 plus number. And even if you add the numbers from CCM, you are off by maybe 200 or so of what the Labour Party received. We do have some more callers on the phone lines. We want to hear from them. Let's head back to the phone lines and we take this call. Caller, you're on the ear. Good afternoon.
No, yes, thanks for the correction, right? But remember, they went into the party. You remember the movement?
Yes.
PAM and CCM was a movement.
Oh, you mean into the last election, PAM and CCM?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They went in, isn't that so?
Yes.
And when you add up, Labour got what, 200 and something more than Unity?
About that, yeah. About that.
13 for something and 13 to something, yes, sir?
About 200 if you run it off.
Yeah. And they had less than 50% of the total votes. They ain't nothing about it. They only have one seat more. And as the person, as McMahon had said, if you were to take out with Dr. Harris and Mr. and Dr. Douglas, you'll have a next toss-up there, Because for years, number 6 has been one of the main contributors to the winning of Labour. You know that?
How so?
You don't know that? Dr. Douglas has never... He always get the most votes. 1,600 and that kind of number there?
Yeah, but our system is not about who get the most votes, Carla. It's about who get the most seats.
I know, but it does help to add up for the balance. Can remember put the total together,
Yes, but I don't see the point, because we're not looking at who get the most votes.
No,
we're looking at who get the most seats.
Yeah, let me continue. Now, a statement that Mr. McMahon made confirm what I said. They wish to have a one-party state. That is a socialist system. You didn't hear him say so? If people are one party. That has always been Labour's ambition. So as much as possible, they don't want any opposition. They've done everything. And in terms of who do better, there is no question that all parties have done good for the country. But in the modern St. Kitts and Nevis, there is no question about it. They say, they had free secondary education. The truth is, in Sandy Point and in Nevis, in Sandy Point, and some of them weren't even allowed. Like I went to the Bastia Senior School. We were not allowed to write O levels. That led to the whole junior high school. We had thousands of people under that same party hailing who put the few. The few went to the Bastia High School, and the majority went to junior high or the Bastia Senior High. Who gave step? Not step, self. I taught in secondary school, where children were sent to our books. Some of them parents were unable to pay for the exams. Who did it? Better housing, better health. No question about it. There was help before, but you got better and improved.
All right, caller. All right.
So when you try to give all the credit, that is where they miss. But the information is there. And the history remains that they want to be a socialist party. They have tried, but under Dr. Douglas, they move right to the right of right.
All right, caller. Well, thank you for your contribution to this program. This is Inside the News for March 25th, 2023. I'm Devon Cornelius, your host for today. For those of you who may have joined the conversation late, we were on the topic of Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation from the People's Labour Party. Generally, we are talking politics today. St. Kitts Nevis politics, more so on the island of St. Kitts and the political landscape. What does Akila Byron Nisbet's resignation mean for the People's Labour Party and the future of that party? There was a point that I wanted to highlight before we close the program for today. There are people who are suggesting that Byron Nisbet is leaving the political scene. She did not say in her statement that she's leaving politics. She said she's leaving PLP. So well, I guess some would take it that if you leave the party, you're leaving politics altogether, right? But she never said that she's leaving politics. Her statement was she has resigned and she's leaving the People's Labour Party. That's all the time we have for today. Let me say thank you so much for your calls and your very meaningful and interesting contribution to today's edition of Inside the News. Thank you so much for your participation. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We have the inter-school going on right now at the Kim Collins Athletics Stadium. Go on out and support your school. Of course, I am biased to Nevis, so I am supporting Team Nevis. More so my alma mater, the Gingerland Secondary School. But today is all Team Nevis, yellow and purple. Guys, go out and enjoy the sports and have a good time. Spend time with your family and friends. And remember, please, don't drink and drive. And certainly don't text and drive. Until next time, you guys, stay safe. Bye-bye.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9.